All right, thank you, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to this meeting of the Assembly Rules Committee. Today's October 10th. I call this meeting to order. We're on the calendar from 1 to 3. It's now 1:04 p.m. I would go ahead and let's go ahead and do the introductions.
Mark Littlefield.
Anna Brawley.
Christopher Constant.
Daniel Boland.
On the phone, I have Ms. Salatel. I'm told she can't unmute, so she's here and she'll be here presently. And then Mr. Martinez.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Bronga.
Yes, here.
All right, thank you. And then we have legislative services attorneys, a room full of folks. A clerk is here. And we'll start with the agenda. Any additions to the agenda? Anyone wants to add? All right, so I don't hear anyone at this point, but we will get to that if anything comes up. So we'll start with legislative employee of the quarter. You have the things. Got that. No, I got that part, but there's the other part, right? Okay, good, thank you. So I just want to make sure we'll have what we need. So there was a robust conversation about who or whom, I guess, whose should win the employee of the quarter this quarter. And the determination was made by the committee. That would be the elections team. Congratulations to the elections team. The team maintains excellent communication with vendors to ensure each deadline is met, with locations for drop boxes and vote centers, with voters who need clarification or assistance, with observers who need clarification or during the process of working through the submitted challenges, and the media and all kinds of people they have to maintain excellent communication with. And excellent communication might be a euphemism. It is what it is, and it is a whole lot more. So that said, their accomplishments include the election. That election is a high priority objective for the municipality each year, and especially the assembly. It's our duty under the charter. And each election is a very large project involving every Anchorage voter. This team has always worked hard to deliver fair, accurate, secure, and transparent elections. Since 2020, the team has worked through a pandemic and a season of disrespect, harassment, and threatening behavior from others. In 2022, this team impeccably implemented the redistricted precincts and reapportioned districts And that doesn't even get into all of the special elections that have had to be run by that elections team, which is just like, surprise, you're going to have more work this year. The customer service accomplishments include that the election team has implemented several pro-voter and pro-integrity assurance initiatives over the past few years, including ballot tracks so voters can track their ballots, risk limiting audits to ensure accuracy and fidelity, 24-hour surveillance to make sure transparency is available, text to cure for a simpler way to cure your ballots, as well as the purchase of ADA equipment for voters with physical disabilities, and of course, annually implementing the Title 28 changes that this assembly puts forward every year. And so with that, I would like to welcome you all to come forward. We'll do a photograph. We have a few little things for you, so come on down.
Scooch a little tighter. Scooch, you see we are never. No, you're always down. So I only have William in the phone. All right.
Thank you for your service. All right, so next on are the reports. I have the Assembly Chair's report. Just to say we're still working through some issues relating to the leadership conversation we had last month. We will be doing some signups today for some work, and we'll talk about that later on the agenda. Also, I think that's about all I'm going to report on right now. There's plenty on the agenda down below. If the mayor wanted to say something, now would be the time. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chris. And thanks everybody for the opportunity to speak. And I just want to start by reiterating the commitment of my team to serve the people of the municipality and work with all of you to move our community forward. We have been at work for more than 100 days, as I spoke to at Tuesday's assembly meeting, and we have made them count. I won't go through all those points, but I'll highlight a few things. During the transition, as I think you all know, we heard three main priority areas that the public wanted us to address, and the first was around good government. So we have been working hard to get our house in order. I want to note that we put over 40 board and commission appointments forward to all of you, and that specific appointments are being worked per your requests, including the naming commission. And I understand too that Marie is working with your team, Claire, to put that word out and recruit folks. We have held a number of meetings and events, around 88 or so, to connect with folks in the community and to work to build some of those coalitions around priorities so that we can move forward with the support, or at least the inputs of folks. We've onboarded over 25 executives between departments and in the mayor's office, and that includes 4 new attorneys in prosecution. We have been really focused on building a strong team, and we value partnerships, and I'm very happy to be moving forward together. And I also wanted to thank the Assembly too for the collaboration at Tuesday's meeting in including a pretty long executive session, and just really appreciate the thoughtful consideration of those issues. Our second priority is safe streets and trails. And in the budget, I think you all have seen that we have expanded the mobile crisis team, or proposed to 24-hour service, continued fully funding the Anchorage Safety Patrol, improving recruitment and retention in the prosecutor's office, and then on our end, begun partnering closely with the state DOT on a series of immediate actions and long-term solutions to address pedestrian deaths and be responsive to the resolution you all passed. Snow removal, we identified funding via the audit and put it toward new snow equipment. Thank you for approving that. And we are coordinating the snow solutions team so that there's a plan in place. And I was a little bit surprised to see snow this morning, but I was kind of hoping for a little more time. But the good news is we've done a lot of work, and I feel like we're in a good place when the first really big snowfall hits. In addressing homelessness, we updated the abatement process, cleaned up 9 camps to address public safety concerns, and along with you, supported 27 people to move from camps to housing. And the sprung structure proposal to sell it will be before you for approval. And then we intend to use that funding for immediate practical response to homelessness, such as shelter and housing over the winter. Thank you all for your long engagement with these efforts. And then finally, building our future from a financial outlook. You all have received the budget. The 2025 budget comes in under the tax cap, puts funding to address today's needs and long-term challenges, including housing, snow, and public safety. We've created a draft housing plan that we'll be sharing with you soon. Looking forward to that conversation. And then again, thanks for the collaboration on Tuesday, and also wanted to continue to encourage folks that if you have questions or concerns that come up when you're working with, different municipal personnel that you're unable to resolve, please involve the leadership in that column, whether it's if everybody rolls up to the municipal manager, that would be Lance Wilbur and Becky Pearson, or other departments that roll up to Bill Falsey. They are available to help and to move those issues forward. I also wanted to mention, it's very important to me to keep employees outside of the political line of fire. And, I come to this position after 6 years of serving on the Assembly, and I truly didn't realize how impactful sometimes those interactions with Assembly members can be, and how, some folks don't want to necessarily move into certain positions because they don't want to be on the stand, so to speak. And so, thanks for your respectful and supportive interactions with staff. And that's right, Mark, you were a member of the municipal staff, and hopefully you only have good stories to tell, but there's some bad ones. But mostly good. Okay. Anyway, we are committed to collaboration and, respectful, productive dialogue. And again, I didn't realize until I moved into this position what it's like to be on the other side for some employees. So anyway, thanks so much for the time, and appreciate the opportunity to be here.
So I want to just briefly speak to that on the conversation about staff and the political line of fire. Maybe we could offline spend some time to talk about what that means exactly. I witnessed an incident here this week at a work session in which at the very last moment, a letter was presented by the staff. The staff had been told, hey, it's not fair to come in and not hand it to us. And hand it to us at the last minute and expect us to consider it, to be happy. Can you please get it to me a week in advance? I had 6 weeks to do that work. And literally at the last minute, they came in, and after having been notified, that would be inappropriate. And of course, the members have feelings when they're absolutely ignored and then abused and then have a completely different perspective flipped in front of the whole public with which appears to be an attempt to completely hijack a project. And without time to consider it, the folks who've spent months or years on projects are waylaid. And so I think the answer to that matter is it's a both branches have to figure this piece out. It's not the assembly also that needs to keep people out of the line of fire, but the staff also has to figure out a better way. And it's not all the staff. There's a lot of staff that do a great job, and there are just some recurring themes that seem to continue to boil up. And so I just want to put that back out there on the behalf of my peers.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate that. And we want to be good. We want to be a good partner, and we want to figure out the best way to help you all have, get what you need. And that's why I guess my request is just engage leadership, and whether that's texting me or Lance Wilbur or Becky Wint-Pearson or Bill Falsey, so that, we can help in getting you what you need.
Yeah.
And yeah, committed to doing that. Just, you all have my number. I know you do.
Anna?
Thanks. Yeah, and I appreciate that conversation. I have more of just a process question, and it's not something that needs an answer right now, but so I know before I started in this seat, there was a time where everything had to flow through the muni manager, and that was extremely inefficient and challenging. But then I started in a time when we did have, there was a legislative liaison, there was some functions, and then generally, I think the request was still send everything through the muni manager. But I know a lot of us develop relationships with department heads or individual staff, right? And so I think I just want to ask going forward, and also say I'm really excited about a lot of your director hires. I know some of those folks are stepping up from being acting to permanent. Other ones are new. So anyway, I'm excited to work with all these folks, but I think it'd be helpful to just kind of clarify or have not a full protocol or something, but for example, if we have a question for about snow plowing, right? Like, do we always include the muni manager? Do we always include someone like Mr. Coyce, the public, right? Like kind of like, and we can't game out every single scenario, but just kind of, I want to make sure that I'm including people on emails that I need to, so that they're aware of the conversation, that I'm not attempting to sidestep or to keep people out of the loop, but also I don't want to crowd people's email inboxes, right? So I think maybe just going forward, and especially as the new directors step into that position, if we could reset, because I think it's mostly just kind of knowing who we need to include, so that we're not always sending it to just one person or not sending it to 50 people and then no one knows who to respond. So that's just something that I know is going to continue to be a workflow thing that we need to work out. Thanks.
And just to respond quickly, thank you so much for bringing that up. I remember some of the policy guidance or that's not what it was called, or the policy from the prior administrations about how communication flowed. And so we will come back with something too, because it is my intent and commitment to be as accessible and transparent as possible. And I know you need information and we want to make progress. So we will follow up and have something in writing.
And if I can just briefly add too, I think the departments that I found, just to say, like a lot of times there's CIP or road maintenance or those kind of physical infrastructure issues. That's one category. I know parks is another parks and trails. And then homelessness. So I think we know kind of who those points of contacts are, but I think maybe for some of those most commonly heard constituent issues, that would be helpful to know specifically. And then beyond that, just, CC the department director if you're contacting a line staff person or things like that, I think would be helpful. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. So next briefing from the clerk. Okay, the clerk has nothing to report at this time. We have plenty of work to do. We added council and ombudsman to the list because somebody pointed out that all the other office departments of the branch aren't listed. So as an equity matter, you don't have to speak, but if council has anything to add, now's your chance.
I'm sorry, I was starting to read something. I don't really have a
You
report
don't.
prepared.
Yeah, what I
I
said,
wasn't, but if you would like regular reports, I could try to have something.
you don't have to.
Next
You,
time.
you may. It is voluntary, but
Okay.
just in respect for the fact that you are here and coming, and we decided we would add you to the agenda. So you know you have a platform if you need it. But no, the goal is not to speak. The goal is to speak when you feel like something needs to be said. So,
Yeah.
right, that's,
Most times it is, but
Yeah,
thank you. I
yeah.
appreciate it.
if there's something needs saying, you have a place. Same with the ombudsman. They're not here, but they'll know in the future. Legislative services.
Thank you. We are working on some really exciting projects and a big variety. As we've mentioned in the past, we're working to do more for Assembly 101. So Ali is creating a bookmark and a big poster stand for meetings with just the basics of how to approach a meeting. And then we're going to have that translated into the top 5 languages spoken in Anchorage. So that's something we'll be rolling out soon. We have been helping with scheduling and communications for the Project Anchorage Sales Tax Initiative. We're working on creating the legislative program for next year. I am working with great folks in the administration on the workforce study. So we'll have a preliminary report out to the assembly in the next couple of weeks on that. The surveys have wrapped up in focus groups, and we've got a lot of really good information to work with. And then Jennifer is staffing the site access working group. We just finished the public restroom study, so I'll be getting that posted and sent out to everyone, and then we'll put it as an aim on a future meeting so you can all see that. And then internally, we are bringing on a new project management tool that we are very excited about. It's very flexible and layered, and the clerk's office, council, and some legislative services will be sharing that, using it together to track the projects for you. And we aim to give the assembly a presentation in December, so you'll be able to use it as well. We continue to struggle a little bit with the aid program. We've been doing more orientations for aid. So once again, if you do have an aid that needs orientation, let us know and we can do that. We've taken that on now and have a more complex orientation. And then there is a group of former assembly members who are working to petition Salaries and Emoluments Commission to get assembly health care. So we are keeping an eye on that one as well. Nerd Night next Thursday on Healthy Soil. So we hope to see some members there. It's at King Street again, and those are really fun. So it'd be great to have you all there. And then finally, we're working on a couple of convenings, an energy and infrastructure retreat for the assembly that you've gotten a hold on your calendars for December 5th. And then we're working with administration to do one on homelessness, administration and the Housing and Homelessness Committee to do one on homelessness in January. That sums up what we're working on.
Right, thanks. And earlier in the year, in discussions with leadership of the clerk, we wanted to use this committee meeting as a kind of monthly or at least quarterly opportunity to have members of boards and commissions to come talk to us. And so today, maybe a 10-minute discussion with the chair of our Budget Advisory Commission. Why don't you come forward? There's a spot over here with a mic. Over here, it's a good spot with the mic, and just introduce yourself. And we don't really have a formal plan for these talks. Last month we had the chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission, so welcome.
There we go. Thank you, Chair Constant, members of the Assembly, for having me. For everybody, my name is Matthew Harvey. I'm Chair of the Budget Advisory Commission, and I appreciate the time and the invite to come today. I know I was a little late in responding. Real briefly, a few of the big things with the Budget Advisory Commission. One is that we're really close to the minimum number of active members on that board, to where for example, we just came from the Budget Advisory Commission. We struggled to meet quorum today. And we were doing really good for a while there, and then had a bunch of members expire right during the transition. So it was promising to hear the mayor mention some appointments, and hopefully we're on that list. But another thing is, last meeting, we got a presentation from Project Anchorage. And I know a number of members on the Budget Advisory Commission weren't super comfortable with proposing a resolution yet, but there were a number of questions which I guess I can mention real briefly. One is with the temporary nature of a sales tax. Some questions came up around how the tax cap would be affected, and because of the ratcheting nature and nature of the tax cap being affected by prior year's taxation, ensuring that we wouldn't hit a structural deficit upon the sunsetting of a sales tax or something like Project Anchorage. And then the other thing is just similar to some problems which get brought up in that commission about road maintenance, like road expansion versus making sure that we can maintain the lane miles that we build, is ensuring that if we have a temporary sales tax, that we can pay for the infrastructure which gets built using some of those tax dollars with future revenues, and really ensuring that that structural deficit doesn't get hit. Today, what we heard was the budget presentation about the budget proposal, and I think we're going to have a bigger discussion about that during the next meeting. But happy to answer any. I will say we appreciated Assembly Members Alatel came today, and one of the things I liked about the presentation that she gave today was the opportunities that she presented the Budget Advisory Commission for things that we can have a discussion about in the commission, and then maybe bring to the assembly as resolutions or letters. That gave us ideas. We're trying to get more active with resolutions and letters, so quorum, and then some of those ideas about things that we can help with really help us, guide us with setting agendas for our commission.
Ms. Brawley.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for being here. And the quorum thing is not an only this year problem, but I remember being in your shoes and dealing with that. But I have been reaching out to apply for the Budget Advisory Commission. So hope get that sorted out, get you more folks to work with. And yeah, I think also I don't know how many of us have actually served on the BAC before, but please feel free to reach out. And I know Mr. Clauda, who is now with the administration, was also a BAC alum, so to speak. So we're happy to be helpful. Yeah, we would definitely love to hear whatever topics, or whether it's something on our agenda or just general that you'd like to take up. We would love to hear from you guys. But I guess my question is, as we're thinking about filling out that board, I know you don't need budget expertise. Obviously, it's helpful if some folks have that, but it's really more a place to learn, in my estimation. But I'm curious if you, just based on who's there now, I'm not asking for names, but like, are there perspectives or kind of types of voices you might want to be hearing that you're not seeing there? Because I know you don't choose it, but you know, it is nice to have a variety of folks on there. So just if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Through the chair to Assemblymember Brawley, I think what we really need folks who are engaged. I think, as you said, one of the and having people who engaged and want to learn. We're looking for ways to get involved in municipal and budgeting, but aren't really sure how to get involved. If anybody like that reaches out to offices, then that's great. Most of the time, it's just hard to know where to and know how to get involved. So anybody who's engaged and wants to bring a level of activity to the commission, I'd gladly accept.
And if you don't mind if I ask, are you an economist?
I'm not an economist by trade. My degree is in finance, and I work at the state level. So I'm fairly aware of state level budgeting, but it's great to see the municipal side, kind of the grant recipient side as well. I did forget to mention two other things. If I could also mention other things about the commission really briefly. One thing that is a topic that's been brought up, but again, not really something that we can write a letter or resolution on, is it got brought up again today, is just sort of operational policies and procedures manuals, and talking to OMB about any improvements that they can make to those, or those sorts of operational improvements. We talked about an operating management system versus a quality management system today, and kind of a tiered plans and procedures manual system as an aspirational goal for OMB. And the other thing that Assemblymember Zalatel brought up today, I just wanted to bring up to the Assembly's attention as a timely manner is a resolution that we submitted. It was either in May or June of this year related to room tax use and distribution. And it seemed timely with regards to definitions of promotion of tourism industry and use of convention center revenue. I appreciate the additions there.
Fine.
Yeah, and I'll just clarify, I was not trying to put you on the spot. As economist, what my point was just to say, you do not have to be an economist, and we welcome all backgrounds on that commission. But it is really great that you have that finance experience. So I'm glad you're there. Thank you.
And in relationship to the resolution from the spring, I can say that I have had direct and thoughtful conversations with the OMB director about the topic. And while I don't see yet any action on the question, it is certainly a topic of conversation frequently when we come together, because it feels like a missed opportunity. As we move into the next budget year, we haven't contemplated how adjustments could be made that are rational and timely, and we should think about how that priority works now that the parameters are changed. So grateful for that input. And I would also note on a personal note, I just kind of looked you up. Turns out we're both alumni of Cal Poly. So cool.
I was just in SLO this last weekend for
Yeah.
a wedding.
Nice. I was down there last year. So it's a great school. Good people come from there. Anything else? Like we're good. Thank you.
Thank you for the time.
Yep. Next, we'll move into the first topic under new business. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time here right now, but between Anna, George, and Daniel, I have 6 slots starting on 10:15 and running through 1/7 to sign up for essentially a 2-week process where you would come to the leadership meetings that happen on Tuesdays and one that happens on Friday, and kind of shadow the process for the leadership. And so I have that with dates and times. I'm gonna, at the advice of Mr. Martinez, rather than assigning people using any method, I'm gonna allow you 3 to figure out which times work for you 3 out of these slots. So we're not gonna do it real time here today. It'll be an email. So that's like one part of it. There's a second part of it. Do you want to speak to it?
Sure. Thanks, Chris. So just kind of planning for the future and looking forward, we really need some additional member engagement on some of these long-term big projects, whether that's Eklutna River restoration, the port modernization program, and similar. And it doesn't mean that you have to be a chair or co-chair of a committee, but that you have an interest or a willingness to step forward. AMATs, quite frankly, is going to be another one of those areas where someone who is interested and will be here past April might want to hop in while there is experience with AMATs. So it's really about that succession thinking, particularly in technical complex areas. So I'm all 3 of those right now. So if you have any interest, please come talk to me sooner rather than later would be greatly appreciated. Thanks.
And I think the operating piece of that, and this is what's challenging because our body is subject to change every few years, is that April comes, Ms. Alto won't be here. Those areas each may have somebody who's a leader on the topic, but it's best to have 2 if we can, just because continuity demands you have somebody who can help and know what's going on. And so that by need is kind of a question for those who have the interest and intent to stick around. We want to put it plainly, fill your plate just a little bit more. So that's reality. Cameron.
Thanks. And I really appreciate the comments, and it's a particular interest. I think moving forward, we talk a lot about our structure, our committee structure, and we've spent some time trying to rearrange that and try to improve that. And then our work plan in terms of how to divide up the work. And one of the conversations I don't think we've had is this one, and that is that all members are free to pursue projects and work that they are passionate about and want to do, and that's great. But then what are those sort of larger long-term projects? And I'll just use an example. I don't know if it came up. Sorry, I'm a little bit late, but right now there's 3 of us that are trying to work on one project, and then there's another 3 that are kind of trying to work on the same project, and yet we're having difficulty communicating with each other to figure out who wants to do that or not do that. And time is passing, and so that's just one example of, I think, a lost opportunity where I think we could probably, in our planning efforts, try to do a little bit better job of saying, here are maybe 2 or 3 big, long-term, year-long, multi-year-long projects that someone needs to dig into and really become really familiar with, and that sort of thing. And I will just put on the record that I'm really interested in that. I mean, I think it's apparent that I'm somebody that really I want to find a few things that I dig into and do those things, and I'm less able to get involved in all of the things that I'd like to, but I just can't. And so I'll just put on the record that that's really appealing to me. This idea of picking a few projects that we know are going to be long term and they're going to require a lot of effort and time, but you can be at it for a long period of time. So appreciate that, and however we add that to our planning process would be great. Thanks.
And I think I just reiterate the key 3 right there: the port, AMATs, and transportation as a whole, and Eklutna. The conversation about the river, the water, power, it's not going to end anytime soon. It outlasts us. And so really the idea is to begin mentorship and bringing up to speed people on those 3 key projects. The port project is going to last at least until 2032, probably a little bit longer. And then we're already immediately, hopefully, looking at what's the next rebuilding plan and how do we fund it so that we don't find ourselves backwards and in a hole. AMATs, of course, we have the transportation committee established, and there are a bunch of priorities moving through there. And I think that that's really important. And I don't know who your number 2 really is on that, but that's AMATs, right? And so, right, you see, therein lies the arithmetic of the problem we're talking about. And so that's the conversation we want to start people thinking about. And sooner than later, how we structure that conversation is hard to say, because these are the kind of projects that don't come up other than, I mean, the enterprise committee does deal with the big heavy stuff. And so that's where the port would go. And so there's some interest in the committee structure, but there's also these extraordinary projects that are, and who knows what's on the agenda coming forward with the administration. We have fleet issues, we have revenue issues, we have workforce issues that are big, but some of those are really management, not legislative, and not ours. And so
Yeah. Is there a relationship though between the committee and that's one of the things that I wonder, like, in my thinking, signing up to be a chair or a co-chair of a committee, I think kind of inherently aligns you to, here's the body of work that I want to work on that year or whatever. But that, I don't know if we've explicitly said that, right? Because, and I don't know if it shouldn't limit other people from working on that, certainly. But that's another planning piece of that, is whether those committees are really work areas where people who want to work on that stuff versus, leading a committee that provides updates to the community and creates a space to work on resolutions and those kinds of things, whether that's like a work body or not. So that's something to think about.
There definitely is committee work on the various topics. Most of the port projects come through the enterprise committee. AMATS is its own beast, but transportation is where it nexus with the assembly. The Eklutna project, it's all over the place. It's partly the enterprise work, but it's also, where does the work of our tribal relationships fit? Where does the work of our kind of the community work there? And so, and I don't know, again, what's on the horizon in terms of big projects. That's emerging, but those are the 3 that stand out right now. So and we have identified staff for each committee, which department heads kind of plug into which committees. And, poor Mr. Rivera is over the quality government services, which is like the everybody else committee. It's the everyone else. But so it's an area that we're kind of challenged in the short term and looking for a midterm solution. Next is youth member mentorship. There was a request made by our friends who are working on establishing this year's cadre of youth members as successful who asked if members would be interested in signing up to meet with individually or as a whole, the 3 youth members, to discuss with them their questions and kind of provide them some insight and perspective. And so it's a really good opportunity to provide some mentorship to these young people. And so I'm essentially asking people to sign up for that. It's fairly choose your own adventure in terms of the time you have, the time they have, what your interests are, what their interests are. But I am asking members to step in as a mentor. Go ahead, Claire.
Heather McAlpine in the Ombudsman's office is the key staff on that, and she is going to pick one date each month to meet the youth members at a coffee shop. So if you can't commit to a full-time mentorship, if you could commit to an hour of meeting them for coffee and giving them your perspective, that's what we're also asking for. So I'll be sending out those dates soon and asking for members to sign up.
Meg.
Thanks. So this doesn't have, it's related to youth members, but it's not about meeting them for coffee or at a coffee shop. I'm kind of curious about the possibility of like, could the youth member come sit next to a member in the meeting? Like, I think like that live idea of, and I know our dais is crowded and it's cozy, or maybe, I don't know, I can agree to go to sit next to the youth member, but like, I think that there's a dynamic there that could really very quickly do a lot of OJT, job training in the moment. So anyway, it's a thought.
And I don't think it's a bad idea. And I think it just would be an extra chair, not an extra computer. They wouldn't be able to sign in up there. So in the context of the mentorship conversation, I think that's a good idea. They wouldn't then be able to queue in. You would have to for them. But we can manage that on paper as we do when matters get complex. Anna?
I'm happy to participate in that. I do have limited time, but obviously I think it's good. And I do feel bad that Kennedy's first meeting was kind of a doozy in terms of procedure and everything, right? So, but I know people were bringing her in, which is good. And then I also just want to flag if I think it's the 13th, or no, it's the 6th is our next joint school board meeting. So we should also make sure, because I know we had Jesse Terrell participate in those. And I think he added a lot of value. And so I'd want to make that opportunity available for whoever.
December 6th.
Yeah, December 6th.
And I
Sorry if
think we
misspoke.
should invite them all,
Yeah.
not just one.
Yeah, and I know it was during the school day, but I think they were able to get an allowance to go. So I'm just flagging that in advance because I think it's really, that in particular is a great space for them to be in.
That sounds good. So far, I have Anna and Karen signed up, Meg as an offering on the dais. We'll take that back. You'll probably see an email also asking your participation. So in case you have an inspiration in the middle of the night on a Tuesday, you're like, yeah, I could do that. Then you can email us back and say, I'm in. So that's that item. So next is the work plan check-in, and that will be Claire.
Yeah, can't hurt. Well, we're in October, so you have 2.5 months to complete your work plan. So I just wanted to get this in front of you one more time before the end of the year. We don't need to go through it line by line, but I'm thinking we could just go through each section and members can give any updates they have. And then hopefully if you see that one of yours is a high priority for yours and hasn't made much progress, it's a reminder to get on top of it. So to start with, the housing goals. Anyone have updates you'd like to share?
I don't have a change to this, but I'll just say I am still working on this non-conforming, kind of dealing with older buildings. But I think, and I just want to flag too, I think the create code safe harbor, potentially we could combine those because they're generally the same idea. It's how to deal with older buildings. So just to flag that. And then the rest of these are all great ideas. Thanks.
Meg.
Thanks. On the second page, it says investigate infrastructure funding solutions. Just want to note that the pro grant includes an aspect of that, and that submission is due next week.
And the administration is prioritizing the hiring of at least one staff person to begin the creation of that team. So it's beyond prep, it's in progress. Daniel.
Thank you. I think we can hit that final item under housing action goals as complete. AO 2024-83 on plan unit development. Oh, unless, what's the TSDO? Oh, transit supportive development ordinance, is that what that is? Okay, well, that one is not complete, but the
Right, and
first
so
part
it's
is.
the overall item is broader, refined code to reduce costs. And so that ordinance is done. So it's, but
Yeah.
there's more. I think it's a broader category.
It's a pretty broad
Yeah,
category.
it's a broader category.
Items are going to be introduced.
1022.
Which, yeah, I keep saying it's August. I long for summer, apparently.
Okay, so then into the quality municipal services.
And then just to let you know, staff are working on, legislative services staff are working on the site plans, pre-approved plans, and in the background, working on some research for Safe Harbor, and then working with administration to get a presentation sometime soon, hopefully, on their goals for housing and tax incentives, so that I think you all kind of made an agreement to hold off on that until there's a big picture plan. So we're committed to getting that discussion together for you.
Hold on.
Next.
Sorry,
Daniel,
before
go
we
ahead.
move on, I do have a question. Investigate and update tax incentives for housing development and upgrades. And talks about it potentially expanding tax abatement citywide. I know that we had one AO that had to do with expanding abatement to different parts of town. Is that a project that's still moving forward in some fashion?
Want to speak?
So
to that?
I have real estate investigating whether or not that tax abatement would need to attach or be wise to attach to the federal archive site, because that RFP is going out soon. So that is something active being considered. So just putting it out there, rules, they're supposed to be getting back to me because the RFP will be in the next month or two.
And I think that ties to what Clara just said, that the members have been kind of requested or suggested, let's kind of have a broader conversation about tax abatement policy as a whole. They're working on some elements of that. So they're putting together their own strategy. And there are a number of smaller kind of sub projects under the bucket that I think are slowly percolating, but nobody's really pushing on them right now. So they're coming. But it's an open chapter right now, is how I would frame it.
Yeah, I'll add, I'm not working on that project specifically, but I've met a few times with folks. I've given Nolan a lot of ideas, like pretty specific ones. And so I think if you want to catch up on what's going on, just talk to Nolan. But I think as I understand, the administration is going to bring forward some ideas for discussion. So
A more broad-based topic. Others on that section?
All right, quality municipal services. Felix isn't here, but there is a note for one of these. There's a couple of ones regarding MOA staffing, and then perhaps having HR provide the vacancy turnover hiring reports at the quality municipal services meeting. So I will pass that request suggestion on to him.
Anna?
Just under community councils, that is not something, it says slated for fall. I think unless Cameron and Daniel have other thoughts, I'm thinking of that's something that we pick up in 2025. And then I just want to say for anybody listening, I am not working on abolishing community councils. I think that someone had a misunderstanding. So I clarified that, one, that's not what I'm trying to do. And two, I think, again, we recognize that community councils are independent, but they intersect with the city in a lot of ways. And so the goal is to make them better. And just to say, I am not intending to do anything with that until 2025, but very interested in that topic. Thanks.
So for my part on the topic of community council, I'll go to you next, Meg. I want to see a review of that section of the code. And I have some ideas about making it more expansive, not ending it, not keeping it so that it's essentially a landowner's government access tool, but instead making it a broader access tool for people who don't fit into the boxes or can't find any soft power within an organization that's established that really represents the landed interests. And so some of that might separate from the original concept of geography and might actually tie more closely to affinity and other ideas. And the charter language of the community councils is very broad. The code language is narrow. And so the good news is we are the stewards of the code. And so that is my thoughts on the topic. And it's certainly not a rush. So 2025 is a good time for that conversation. Anna, you had something? Okay, Meg, go ahead.
Great. So not on community councils, update public records. Chris jumped on that project just as an FYI. And then I would love for one to be reflected in here somewhere about CIP, CIB. I have 2 different projects moving on that. And then I know we're continuing to look at the process collaboratively with the administration. And I think that's quality municipal services, like how we access those things. And then I have something where I'm working on equity in the assembly branch budget, but I'm not sure if we want to call that quality municipal services.
I
But-
think that is further, that one, both of those sound familiar, so I was just scanning
Okay.
to see it. I'll make a note to add the CIP, CIB here if it's not somewhere else, and I'm pretty sure yours is under, the other one is under assembly business.
Oh, there's the improved CIP, CIB.
Yep, we have it under
Which is
assembly.
under business goals, I think.
Yep,
Okay.
assembly business. And I think your other one is there. Yep, second one on assembly business.
Okay, great. I don't care where it's at. I was just working through. Okay.
So for that legislative services staff, I am working with admin on the workforce survey, and then Jennifer is working on a few of the things with, oh, no, that's different. That's about all that we're working on under this one. Economic development goals. While you're reviewing the
Yeah, I think one is the ACE fund here. It's already marked as complete, but just to say, I think the assembly's formal role in that is complete. The next piece of that is the budget, which is separate from the board. So that's just saying that's accurate. The improving muni processes and regulations on business, I think that is also one. There's some things listed here that need to happen, like for example, reviewing childcare licensing code. I haven't picked that up. I'm not picking it up until next year, or if there's others who want to pick it up, that's totally fine. And I think there's other things that could be done in that space of kind of how we interact with business, especially small business. So I'm just saying that's something I don't anticipate taking more action on, but I think it is a worthy topic. And also if there's others who want to pick that up, any aspect of that, I'm happy to step off of it if I'm in the way. Thanks.
Karen?
Thanks. This was more about probably quality municipal services, but I really am interested in, and I'm working on it myself, but trying to make a district-specific pass-off that an assembly member gives to a new assembly member that would include your frequent callers and the topics, the projects you've been working on, the best contact you have for each of the community councils. I feel like I didn't get a lot of good handoff, and I think that would be really important to try to make a better process to pass off a specific district seat information.
I'll add that as a project to assembly business goals and put your name on it, and legislative services would be happy to work with you on that too.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you. So back on economic development. Anyone? Okay. Next.
Homelessness. Randy did take off that first one because ACEH is such a leader in data and they have the great data dashboard. So he's just going to refer to that. We do have the issue that there's not data for the money that the municipality is, for the things the municipality is funding. It's kind of in different places and hard to track. So not much we can do about it, but something to think of for the future.
Go ahead, Dana.
So this is just a question and may just speak to my own ignorance. I think increasingly it's becoming in the community a talking point that some folks have been offered shelter or housing, but they don't want to go into that. They would rather prefer to stay outside or in their RV or whatever it is. Do we track individuals and if they've been offered housing or shelter and how many times? Is that public information or at least information that policymakers would have access to? I just don't know. I'm going to email my local coalition. But I think that'd be an interesting data point. Thank you.
I would offer it's not a talking point that has emerged. It has, in my 15 or 20 years on the question, always been one of the undertones. It's omnipresent. So other items in the topic? Anna?
Yeah, just in general, I mean, so big difference between where we were this time last year. We are not drafting all of the funding resolutions for homelessness. So I just want to know, I mean, that's there, and I think it is important, but I think, and we can still say it's in progress, but really I think our role is within the budget at this point. And I think that the question about sustainable shelter is also a good one, but, and this already says, this is something the administration is leading, but I just want to flag that like our role is fundamentally different moving forward, and which is good. So I think it's something that we need to work on, but it's not quite the operational level that it was before. Thanks.
Eva, you are the last member who liaises directly with the administration standing in the room. Of all of the challenges that happened on Tuesday night, there was one very subtle one that folks need to understand is important on behalf of the assembly. I think, if I may, correct me if I'm wrong, that there was the item to purchase the tent, and then there were items that were to use the money from the sale or purchase of the tent for specific purposes that required later processes, public hearing, and other details for reappropriation. And so we were asked to approve an item that was based on funding from a future action that we had not yet contemplated, right? And so should we have been in the position of saying yes to the item in the moment, we would have effectively foreclosed our ability to meaningfully contemplate, deliberate the item coming before us at the next meeting, because effectively the decision had been made to appropriate the funds, spend them as appropriated in the future. So the concern is that there's an order of operations that might feel arbitrary or abstract, but we're pretty consistent about attempting to follow the order. We don't issue contracts until funds are appropriated, right? That's like even if it's on the same agenda and they're out of order, we will change the order of the day to take up the appropriation before we issue the contract, because it just feels wrong and it feels like we're foreclosing our right to take certain action. And so I know there are a lot of feelings over what happened on Tuesday with the laid on the table procedures and all of that. And I don't belabor anybody for doing anything wrong. It's just a learning process. But well within the deeper pockets of all of that conversation was something very interesting. And it was, let's spend money we don't have for a priority. We're going to ask you next month if it's your priority. Yeah, go ahead.
It's really around the fund cert. So if the contractual fund cert is subject to appropriation, that's cool if it's like in the next budget process for the next year. But if the appropriation item is literally scheduled for 2 weeks to be publicly heard, I think that's where the kind of rub gets, because we want to hold a public hearing without necessarily predetermined outcomes of the public hearing, because otherwise why have the public hearing?
Right. It's just one of those small things you probably wouldn't notice if you're on the other side. And it just, there's an order of operations, and generally speaking, we try to hew to it. And that is, we have the money, great, then we can issue the contract. We have to figure that out. So that's just a solid thing, and you're the winner because you're here.
I will take that upstairs.
Thank you.
And as with all things, probably communication and advance notice fix a lot.
Makes a big difference, yeah. And generally, we will figure out the order if we see it out of order because it's legislator brain. I think it's a thing. So, okay, next item.
Wait, I
Oh,
want to
Karen,
talk.
thank you for speaking up. Go ahead, Karen.
Okay, so I just, since you were talking about last meeting, I wanted just to make sure we make a little note about the weirdness of not seeing the amounts of the other contract, bidders for contracts, and how odd that was to not see the scoring and how we've seen stuff like that before. And then the other, well, we're on the homelessness category. I am working really hard to try to figure out day labor supported work type experience. We don't have a real good thing going right now, and I've been looking in other cities of how we might make that happen. I think it's important for the community to start seeing some progress, and whether, you know, you believe that doing day labor signifies progress, it's a step. And so that's one thing I'm working on.
Thank you. Go ahead.
All right, assembly business goals. Meg, both of yours are in here. Do they have what you need, or do you want to add anything else?
And I think all that in progress stuff is really good. It's happening.
All right,
Yes.
public health, safety, and quality of life.
So I have one to add. So we have this wildfire mitigation response, which predisposes urban anchorage in other parts of the municipality. But I've been hearing of some issues relating to urban fire and actually urban deterioration, issues of neighborhoods that are starting to reach their end of life, if you will, and the public safety and public health crises that is starting to generate or magnetize. And so I'm not sure exactly how to put it, but I think it really ties closely with the wildfire mitigation. It's like, what about the urban side? The neighborhood starting to burn down, you know, mostly, yeah, anyhow, I don't want to belabor that, but I want to put another focus there. Meg?
Thanks. I guess this could be part of the 24/7 service, but there's one where I want to codify the mobile crisis team as an emergency service. I've spoken with the fire department. They'd like its existing code. Right now, mobile crisis team only exists as a budget line item, but I think it's much more important than that. And so, and that'll be, I guess we could call it in progress because y'all be seeing it soon. Thanks. I have one, Cameron, and so Daniel. Okay, great. Thanks for volunteering.
And that would be for both MIT and MCT?
Not MIT, mobile crisis specifically. There's a place under code for emergency services in the fire department specific code. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, just two updates. And Cameron stepped out, but the thing he referred to earlier was this revised purpose and composition of Public Safety Advisory Commission. I think if we can reword that, because what we've kind of said is it's not, at this point, it's not creating the advisory commission again. It's really looking at a public safety, a community-led public safety body. And I think it's an open question if it's advisory, if we use the word oversight, right? There's other things in there, but just to say we're looking at that entity. And Cameron, I'm just giving an update on public safety that's relevant to us. And that's the piece that I think we need to work out because it does overlap with this other work and this oversight body. So just to say that's what that is, but we're interested in figuring out who's doing what. And then the other thing I'll just briefly say is where did, oh, and the last one, the BSA, just to note, the two members working on that for this 2025 resolution are Karen and Felix. So the three of us listed here worked on the one from January. So I don't know how we want to handle that, but just to clarify, thanks. Yeah, sorry, the BSA is Karen and Felix right now, and they may pick up a third, but it's those two right now. And I'm not on that one yet.
Meg,
Thanks. So for the one where it seems like there's 6 members, I am not one. So now you're down to 5.
Can we have that conversation now? Felix isn't here, but
so shortly, we'll finish with the work plan and then we have the open briefing on our priorities and projects that we're working on. So put a pin on that. On ahead. Go ahead, Claire. Oh, you're typing. Fine. Wish it were that easy.
All right, infrastructure and transportation goals.
Go ahead, Meg.
Can we add the pedestrian safety stuff that all of a sudden came to light and now we're working on? I guess in some ways it could be included through the investment in safe streets, road maintenance and non-motorized transportation, but we should just capture that and that we've declared October Pedestrian Safety Month, I think is what we called it. And then the last one I had for an update, the stormwater utility, I'm not one of those members, but it's a standing item on the EUOC committee. And it comes back for its first briefing this month.
All right, Mark.
Thank you, Chair. I have a slight update on the very last one about assumed snow plowing of all funded state roads except for Glen, Minnesota, New Seward. We asked for a pilot project out in Suburban. It was a resounding no. The TORA out there is funded a little different. We do the work and they pay us. The TORAs in town are a little bit different. They just swap back and forth. So I don't know if we need to keep investigating the TORAs or because they've got money to work on their priority 3s and 4s now, that I think it'd be a moot point to even move forward trying to get any of their TORA work from them because their roads mean dollars. So if they start losing roads, they lose dollars. They lose a little bit of funding. So I don't know if we need to move forward with that.
So I would just cross out Chigiak Eagle River and put ARTSA because I'm still pursuing some hope, particularly around fireweed. Thanks for this winter.
I think there's an interesting idea there here to separate it from just the snow plowing. So that's one, great. But we should also contemplate a whole category under infrastructure and transportation that are pilots, just pilots in general. We should contemplate pushing pilot efforts, do things, test things, experiment, fail, succeed, build new, just like the mobile, the productive bike lanes, the bike paths. We should try to do more piloting of things so that we can experiment with our system and grow. And so I would add a separate goal of work to implement innovative projects and that would be the goal, and using pilot initiatives. So we keep that as a call out. Cameron?
Who's we?
The municipality.
Yeah, okay.
You know, we don't do anything with roads, the assembly, but we can work we are the ones who inspired the bike lane. It happened because Daniel brought it. He and I talked, let's just get one. So that's our role, is to bring these up. We don't do these things, but, and ultimately a lot of it's transportation related.
Yeah, I just want to I know you guys heard, but I think you're right. I mean, I think the ideas and that sort of thing. I just also want to, I think it's a unique opportunity, and I know that we all know this with this particular administration to combine our efforts and make sure and I understand that we have the ability to do it separately and that sort of thing, but especially with pilot projects, that's figuring out what are the 2 or 3 really important ones that we need to try and do them collaboratively. So.
And if we prioritize kind of innovation, then it can be an ongoing conversation about piloting different needs and wants and potential ideas, small scale as we go to large. And I will say the conversation relating to transportation, as much as I like the folks that they've brought to the table at the policy level, it's still lacking in gravitas, their team. And so they are not up to the job yet with their experience to be driving questions of transportation. The Transportation Committee is an amazing center of gravity now. When you contemplate who shows up, who they bring, the administration is there, the state DOT is there, we have our team there. That's where things are going to start to shake down and move. And so I look forward to the day when the administration's team coming to AMATS has the level of experience and qualification that the members do. This is not that day. Not yet. We're getting there. So all in good faith in due time. Others? I think that's the
I
list.
think we're done.
Okay.
I will send this draft out to you when I'm done. I'm hoping to check in with each of you and see what your needs are from legislative services from now through the end of the year to get your goals done. But if I don't get a chance to do that, know that if you have something, please contact us and we can help you figure out. If you're still not quite sure how to turn it into a project, we can help you with that, connect you with the right staff and admin, whatever is needed to get your projects going. Continue to see us as a resource, and pretty soon we'll start planning for the 2025 plan.
Chris, can I ask a question real quick?
Please.
Just on that, I guess because the municipal attorney is here in the room, I want to say that what's the process of crosswalking this with the administration? Like, what's the process of taking these projects and goals and things and crosswalking it with what are these are a priority of the assembly, or I'm sorry, of the administration? What are these are things that are top of your list and are you currently working on and that sort of thing? What are these maybe are for the administration, maybe a lower priority, so that we have a sense of at what point maybe it's a project the administration is not particularly interested in, but I am, right? So I, as an assembly member, can go and work on it and do stuff with it. But if it's something that rises to the mayor's list, like that's something she's really thinking about for next year or for later in this year, then that would help me to go, oh, okay, well, that's something that means I'm going to try to align my communication and work with that. What would that process look like from your perspective?
Thanks. I am winging it with this because it's not a question I've thought about before and I don't have any particular inside information, but
Just say
I have,
yes.
I think, two thoughts on that. I mean, this committee could be a good place where if there's an ask to have the administration review the work plan and come back and kind of chime in when you go around and go through each item and share priority level. I think that's one way. I think it would also, maybe it would be good to have an extra column on here that just indicates if you've had contacts with the administration and who, because that gives, if you've, been talking to a department or an individual about one of these projects in particular, a good way to tell where the priorities are is go talk, we can then, they can go talk to that person, find out what the status is, if this is a shared priority between the assembly and the department to move forward. But not to impose the administration's agenda onto your own work plan, but even just having this reflect like status of discussions with the administration was my suggestion. But what I will do is make the ask to have somebody come report on or get a sense of where everyone is on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the reason why we articulate it, so others can be aware of what we're doing and what we are focusing on and what our priorities are and the status of them. And so, and I think there's interest not only from the community to know here's what we're doing, and for people in the community to say, hey, I'm so excited that someone's working on that. I'm going to call that person up and see if I can help. Same thing with the administration. I think if we can align our efforts to the degree we can, great. Thanks.
So Eva, I would say it's a good idea to have folks come maybe, but this really is a venue for the body, and the mayor has provided a special position to participate in the fact that the charter allows her to participate as a member. But we definitely want folks here, like you're here carrying the bag for their information because you're the only one here. So, but we do these briefings at the end of every one of these meetings where folks put stuff on the table. So having the information and so far as they can come is wise and good. Meg?
So this is a great chance for me to raise an issue. I mentioned to you, Chris, and to Eva today, as we're working on projects and we might send them into the administration, you might want to indicate if you're not ready for it to be prime time yet, if it's subject to deliberative process. I made that mistake of not thinking that through with some newer members of the administration. And it doesn't mean that, they're not going to share it, amongst themselves, but the idea is that it doesn't it's still internal, and that it's maybe not shared unless that members say it's okay to be shared further. Because sometimes we put together ideas and we want feedback on those ideas, and we may choose not to bring them forward. The other piece to that is maybe under one of these, we want to put down the work being done to clarify the role of the Office of Equity and Justice, because that work is underway. I'm thinking it could either go under good government or public health, safety, and quality of life. I don't know. We can pick. Or quality municipal services, because the idea is we're trying to get back to that original intent, which was this shared office. And so I know that's coming soon, but I think it's really good to reflect that work in this chart. And that's one where I guess we could call out if we already are partnering with the administration on something, and that is one where we are partnering with the administration on. And so I think that would be a good way to do some of that, because sometimes we are actively talking to the administration about co-sponsoring a particular item.
Yeah, and there's something about the new administration and tricks. There's probably no rule or law that the administration can't talk with whoever they want about those things, but there is relationships and trust and how we work together. It's pretty important to keep those projects together. But I think also it's on us to communicate that, please keep this close. And internally at our own staff, we have created mechanisms. This is a close hold item. This is a public item you can share with these people item, because we have the law to deal with on the open meeting side, but that relationship, it requires really good communication to protect the privacy of your projects you're not yet ready for prime time. So, but that's a work in progress with new administration. Go ahead.
In response to your question, Cameron, I bring that assembly priorities document to every meeting I've had with new staff in the administration, as well as outside entities. So I'm always trying to share that around, make sure at least the public understands what your work plan priorities are.
Just a quick note on, kind of close hold sharing. Things that come to the municipal attorney's office, we are all pretty well trained. If it comes from a member, we ask before we share it, but we're lawyers and we have different rules that apply to us. So that's kind of baked into what we do. But yeah, I think communicating if something is meant to, not be prime time or not be shared, or, hey, I want your perspective as this person, but I'm not ready for it to be more broadly shared. Just being very clear. We have a lot of people, including me, still in their learning curve. So communication helps.
Anything else? I'm not hearing anyone else. So let's then move on to the final item on the agenda, which is kind of what we were doing just now in some ways. This is our kind of formal opportunity to go around the room, talk about pending business and updates from committees. Ms. Zalto, you had asked, or Meg, you'd asked for just kind of a special briefing on committees.
Yeah, so my request was, and it doesn't necessarily have to be this month, maybe it could even be next month, but I don't attend all of the committee meetings. I just can't. And so I just want to underscore that update from committee's side. In particular of interest to me, I don't attend CEDC. I can't. I have generally a standing conflict. And quite frankly, unless there's really something that pulls me, because I also have a standing conflict, public health and safety is one I can't attend. And so I can go back and listen to them, and I do, but if there's overall, what I guess the updates I'm looking for is if there's an overarching theme or thing you're exploring or going to be bringing before your committee, I would like to know that as a member. So if I need to make space or time to tune in, I can, or prioritize that work, particularly if it intersects with work I'm otherwise working on. Thanks.
Okay, so update on priorities. We'll start with you, Mark.
Thank Thanks, Chris. I don't have any priorities. I just know that, and I'm the alternate on the AMATs, but the AMATs TAC and the PC was both canceled this month there's a specific reason. I'm pretty sure they're waiting for the STIP to come back, and then there's inadequate funding that came down from the Fed. So there's going to be a lot of conversation on what projects are going to move forward. I didn't mean to steal your thunder,
No,
but
it's okay.
that's all I have.
Inadequate funding is also a euphemism. So, thank you, Cameron.
Let's see. So I like the idea. I love the idea of doing committee updates. That's really smart because I think there's probably a lot of us that can't attend all meetings. So that's a cool idea. Also, recently I've been using the AI meeting thing that comes on your Facebook or whatever, and it records your entire meeting, and then it creates like a synopsis of everything that happened and all the priorities and everything that's everything. It's pretty awesome. I know your faces are scary, but it's pretty amazing because you can have a 2-hour Zoom meeting and it listens to the entire thing and then creates an entire like work plan synopsis, whatever you want of the entire meeting in people's quotes and everything. It's pretty cool. Anyway.
You're after your job, Jamie.
Yeah. Anyway, but it just listens to your Zoom meeting and creates it literally in seconds after it's done. So I've been playing with it. So let's see. So in terms of public safety, public health and safety, I would just say that we're, I think, still trying to find our rhythm there. There certainly has been a fair amount of conversation about citizen oversight. That's been one piece, and we'll talk about that in a minute, and as well as the independent investigation of one of the officer involved shootings, which they've identified that person to do that work, and that is starting, and they're still working on the request for, is it a request for proposal, or it's a search for an independent organization or person to do an evaluation or a look into APD's policies, trainings, et cetera, and the municipal attorney can share more about that. But that's been some of the information. Mostly beyond that, beyond the conversations around that, it has been updates, primarily updates from the health department and the police department, fire department, office of emergency management, all of those kinds of things. And I I'm continuously trying to figure out whether that, because there is a sense of need of having updates from all those departments. They want to come and they want to share and they want to do that work. But I heard pretty clearly, recently that that's not necessarily what assembly members value in terms of what to do with that meeting. So I'm curious about, again, what to do with that time. They have not been productive work sessions where we're working on legislation. Which is what I would prefer to use for that. So that's it. I'm going to start to do more pre-meetings and try to figure out if there's a better way for us to focus the work on work that's directly related to the assembly. The other update is just what Anna was mentioning. We have so there's a group of 3 of us. It's Anna, Felix, and myself that have been talking to the Alaska Coalition for Justice. And have been talking about, initially it was rebooting the Public Safety Commission and looking at whether it was possible to potentially change the code or even potentially do a charter amendment to utilize that body to meet some of the concern and the need around citizen oversight, and whether there was a potential role for that to be rebooted and to take on some of that work. So there was a number of meetings with the Alaska Coalition for Justice, and they have identified 4 people from their group who want to work on broadly citizen oversight and police accountability and all of these issues. They're really excited and engaged in that. And we learned that there were that was part of the work that Daniel and Meg and Felix were doing as well, and that they had already had meetings with APD and a few other folks. And so that was one of the conversations, is that body of work, whether it's the reboot of that commission or not, which I'm not sure that's necessarily the right path forward to do that, or that's the right way to do it. But the group is really interested in tackling police accountability, relationship between the police department and the public. What systems, what processes, what things can we as a city do to really improve that in a very thoughtful way, and do that in collaboration with APD and the union and the community and community organizations, and really try to do that in the right way. So that was our interest, and it sounds like that's your interest as well. And what I do know is Anna had mentioned that she's willing to step back if necessary. So if we want to make a little rearrange, then we could do that. And if Meg is not going to be doing it, then we could just do you, me, and Felix. So anyway, so that's the update on that. And what else was I going to say? That's all I can think of right now. Thanks.
Anna?
Yeah, thanks. So in addition to what Cameron said, and I'll just put a point at it too. I think it's a question to you, Daniel. Do you want to be in on that or not? Because like I said, I'm willing to step back.
I'm fine either way. So yeah, I'm happy to take your spot, or it makes no difference to me.
Yeah, and we can maybe connect offline,
Sure.
but just to think about it. Okay, thanks. So other things to share, Claire briefly mentioned the site access working group. So we all remember multiple ordinances around a piece of zoning code that was challenging and is now on pause. We are moving forward with the working group that we talked about months ago, working collaboratively with planning. We've got community members, we got developers. And we're trying to kind of, in the spirit of piloting, pilot the model, myself and Mr. Voland. We can have a third if anybody's interested, in working collaboratively to understand what the code was trying to do, set some goals, and really come up with a new version of that code that gets to what it was supposed to do, and actually make sure that it works in real life as well. So we're starting that process. Our next meeting, or our first meeting, is October 15th. There will be some opportunities for the larger community to attend and listen in if they would like. Probably not that first meeting, because we're going to spend mostly a lot of time figuring out, or just kind of level setting and what we're going to do. But anyway, more information soon. And then the goal is really to bring that back fully through the process, including Planning and Zoning Commission, and bring it back to the Assembly in March or April of next year, because we know that this needs to happen. So anyway, working on that. We're going to keep it moving. We'll see how this process goes. Another couple updates, tax foreclosure property. This is actually something the administration is working on with Dean, I believe. It's a follow-up to the Supreme Court case Tyler versus Hennepin. It has to do with, if the city keeps a property, how do you determine the value? And then what is the time frame that somebody can claim that property if it's been foreclosed on? And that's probably the limit of my knowledge of that item, but just to say it is coming back. And then to Meg's point about legislative committee, we just had that committee meeting, so I won't repeat it for those folks who were here, but just to say, Jennifer will be following up. So please, all members, look at the draft that we are producing if you have thoughts about what is or isn't in there. And then we are planning to have a full draft for review of the legislative program at our next meeting, which will be Thursday, November 7th. And I know not everybody attends that meeting, but if you have thoughts or questions or want to talk through it, please contact Jennifer and contact Nolan Clouda on the administration side, because they're really taking lead on a lot of those pieces. So just to say, if you can't make those meetings, that's the other way to do that. And then also, what was briefly mentioned in that other committee was a legislative lunch. So several of us attended last year. So just, we don't have a date yet. And that one's going to be led by the mayor's office, but just mentally make a note to yourself that early December, there is an opportunity to meet with our Anchorage delegation of legislators before they head down to Juneau. And it will be some kind of lunch presentation of our legislative program. And I think that's all my updates for now. Thanks.
Meg?
Thanks. I have a bunch of items related to the upcoming budget process. One is on the capital improvement plan and capital improvement budget, around identifying specific bond or tax levy categories on an annual basis. I have a a resolution around equity and bonding for projects, not for 25 spending, but to look forward possibly to 26. The ordinance around codifying the mobile crisis team, and that'll now have Daniel and Cameron. I'm working with Daniel and Felix on a shared vision for APD before we pass their budget, and that's in conjunction with the administration. And working with Daniel and I think Anna on traffic calming resolution, given the proposed additional funding there. On land use, there will be a ordinance on special limitations coming up and an ordinance on multifamily residential design standards. And that is a full plate. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think May covered most of what I was going to say, so I'm good. Thank you.
Karen?
Sorry about that. I have something I'm working on with Anna that we're not ready to time. And I told you about my plan for day labor. And that's all I need to talk about, I guess. Thanks.
Right, thank you. George?
Thank you. Just to remind members that the Community and Economic Development Committee meets monthly, and I appreciate Member Zaltel's description of going back and looking at information as it's made available. And just to remind folks, we publish all of those on our website, whether they're presentations from every month and the agendas. And I look forward to seeing some of the items that members discussed, workshopped, and coming through the committee. So that's good news that there's work coming. Thus far, continuing to look at the expansion of the tax incentives outside of different areas. People have mentioned that before, and we're working on that with the administration as part of a collective look. Also, continuing discussions and working on a project with Randy on the transit supportive corridors and overlays. And then also at the committee level, we expect that a presentation we had a few months back on the creative economy, specifically music cities in Anchorage and Anchorage music economy. The census was what they were working on. We were an investor as the municipality in some of that work. And the full census has been published, and I look forward to us getting that back. And then also continuing to focus on vacant and abandoned properties, and that work. Particularly, we're waiting for an update from a federal application for grant dollars through ACDA to do more property resets. Thank you, Chair.
One more round, Mr. Mullen, before I go.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot we were doing committee updates. Did want to highlight that next week we're having our transportation committee. This one that we don't have as often. So it's going to be on October 16th. We're going to hear three things. Number one, an update on snow removal preparations as sort of a follow along from the last meeting. Number two, we're planning to hear more about regulation of tour vehicles. We heard some public testimony about that at our previous meeting, and so I'm interested in having that conversation. And then finally, and I think this will be a lengthier discussion, we are going to be having discussion about that multi-agency report that we accepted on the pedestrian fatalities. So I hope you all will be able to participate and ask some really good questions. Thanks.
So I have two things I'll report on right now relating to priorities. Not the full suite of what I'm working on, but things I think I'm ready to talk about. One, there's an interesting article in ADN that was published, I think it was yesterday or day before, about the baseball property in Mountain View, Jamar Hills project. And I just want to read one section to you. The boarded up houses on the adjacent lot included an old log cabin kit home that will be torn down by the city to support the project. So I have worked really hard to get the city to work with him through the abatement fund. And the municipality worked with the lending institution that had foreclosed on the abandoned houses. So here's the clutch. The lending institution agreed to donate the properties to the baseball group after the city waived fines associated with the nuisance property. Amazing. It's like all the puzzle pieces came together. I worked with code worked with all of the processes. They got the ability to tear down the building because they had the money in the budget, and then they negotiated the deal where the property, or helped to negotiate the deal where the property swapped in the process. And so I mention that because I may be seeking in the budget process to increase the abatement fund a bit. Not a huge amount, but some, because it's a very effective tool. And I've talked with OMB director about it, and I just want to let members know that this is a great project. And it was kind of ironic. She said, we almost swept that to do this other thing with, just as I was coming to her to say, this is a very important pot of money, because things like this happen, where a blighted property that had years and years and years worth of calls, meth dealers, fires, it had burned out and there were still people living in that building. It is now cleared, abandoned, and they're about to knock the darn thing down. It's going to be incorporated into this amazing asset for the neighborhood, and it directly abuts Davis Park, which is, if you spend any time in Mountain View, the locus of all the headaches in that neighborhood. And so there's something good happening because there was advocacy, there was a little bit of money, and everybody worked together. And so more of that, please. And we do that through the budget. That's our role. And then the second piece, this is a little bit of a hot lava piece, and I'm just going to reveal it now so that folks are starting to socialize on the idea. Hot lava to some, totally reasonable to most, I'm guessing. Currently, we have our Title 28 updates coming, and that's our annual process to update the elections code. But it's become apparent with the tide, as things have become, that our election centers are a hub of threats and danger. And so what I am going to be proposing, and I'm just putting it out at the very top level right now, is a weapons ban at the election center. And so currently there is no such ban. People can come in there with deadly weapons, and it's just not okay. And so I'm moving forward with a project that will kind of work along with the elections code updates that will address public safety of our workforce that works in that building. And so I just want to put that out there now. You'll see more on that in the next couple of weeks. So go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, I know not time for substantive discussion. It would be helpful to understand what the current policies are at other municipal properties and also schools. Not to answer right now, but just I think that would be helpful. Thanks.
Cameron.
I've got one thing in mind, but if anybody has any other questions about yours first.
It's great.
Okay. So an idea emerged actually from legislative services to, and this is still early in the planning, but I don't know if there's been an update on the sort of the homeless summit idea that is emerging. So just wanted to give a quick update so I think at least one, maybe two meetings have happened so far to begin to think about maybe similar to the housing summit, but something around homelessness. And there's still a lot of conversation about the purpose and the timing and the scope and the who and the how and the why and everything. But initially there's some exciting ideas kind of emerging out of that. So just wanted to give an update on that so far. One of the ideas that has emerged out of it that I'm particularly excited about is to potentially create a conversation toolkit that would be shared with community councils and community groups across the city that would provide some conversation resources for small, medium-sized groups to talk about in a productive way their ideas, perspectives, concerns, thoughts around this complicated issue, not necessarily as a way to teach, but a way to create space for conversation on it. So that's one project that's kind of emerging out of there that might be interesting. And then the second is to try to do some kind of a larger gathering like the Housing Summit that would create an opportunity to share really good information, and both in terms of our challenges, our progress as a city, to complicate the narrative a bit, to share how challenging and how complicated the issue is, to bring community partners together in the city and businesses and others to have a really well thought out time for this sort of learning experience and sharing experience. So that's probably all I got. I don't know, if, Claire, if you want to add anything to that, but I've just been a part of one conversation about it so far, but I know that there's some interest in trying to pull that together. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, we did meet with Thea Agnew Benben and Farina Brown this week and had a really good meeting. Originally, we had held time in November for a summit on any topic. Like, last year the housing summit went well, so we just held space in November. Allie was shopping around different ideas. Homelessness came up. We didn't want to put the assembly in the position of being the sole people having a homelessness summit when you don't really have authority to do a lot of the work. But once Thea and Farina seemed really on board with it, and it seemed like they would we would do more of the logistics side of things and they would take more responsibility for the content, it felt a little more doable. And of course, we're partnering with you and Randy as the leadership of the Homeless and Housing Committee. So we met with them and just feeling hopeful that it can be a productive conversation and not a just yelling match.
So I will just add that I think that there is a statewide summit on homelessness that's hosted by the state Balance of State Coalition. And so I think that it would be wise to investigate the timelines of those things that are happening, because rather than creating the wheel, it might be better to jump on the boat or jump on the bus with the groups that are convening those statewide conversations. I don't remember when they happen, what time of the year. I thought it was November, but maybe it's March or something in the spring. I've been to it a couple of times. And on that topic, though, what Claire didn't say was we made a decision to use the convening time for a retreat that we're proposing for December 5th. Members should put on their calendar. It's the second half of the day when we're going to have a deep dive with the administration on infrastructure and funding and energy policy, so that we can start to wrap our heads around the kind of big picture crisis and opportunities that are emerging around the region for our energy future. Go ahead, Meg.
And that timing is deliberate around, because we'll know by then what the budget looks like and whether or not we've created a grants department or some other thing. So it lets us really kind of take whatever action we've taken through the budget and then have a conversation around the substance of what that might be.
So other items, anyone? Mark?
Really quick on your pilot program, I really like that idea. And reverting back to fireweed, which is half state, half city, why can't we propose that as a pilot program for us to take over? It's not a whole lot of work. It'd be part of their mains, and it's not a whole lot of thing that you've got it. Okay.
Yep, and that's definitely, folks are talking. Folks are definitely talking. And they just finished the bike lane. And so I think the traffic folks I think they'll be a little jazzed to be given some bandwidth to expand, explore, and to try things. And so, but of course, that all turns on the ultimate crux, which is the budget. Who pays? And so, and what is it? Okay, others, anything else? I think we're good then. Anyone from the audience wish to participate? Anyone on the phone? Hearing seen none, there's no members of the audience here. No one on the phone. So with that, thank you, everybody. We will adjourn. Long day tomorrow. Bring your budget books.